All right, welcome back, listeners, viewers, whatever you call yourself, of the Kansas City Underground podcast. We are glad you're here. And by we, I mean me and Morgan,
Yeah.
not me and Corey. How do you feel being on the podcast? You excited? You nervous?
Oh, man. I love it. I'm glad to be here. I'm a regular listener, man.
Yes. Regular listener. And I was going to say regular contributor, but then we realized Morgan's only been on once. So you need to correct that.
Yep.
You need to become a regular contributor.
Happy to do so, man.
I just need to start by saying that your picture looks better than Corey's. I'm not trying to say you look better than Corey. I'm just saying that your image shows up better than his does.
That's good. I'll take that.
I can't wait for him to listen to this and figure out what to do with it. All right, let's dive in, man. Morgan, quick intro from my end, is a good friend, one of the hub directors in the Kansas City Underground, and is just one of the people helping make this network go, if you will, one of the servants of these teams. So let's just start with a little bit of introduction. I don't know how much Corey did last time, but it's also been a minute since you've been on here.
Yeah.
So
not a lot. So.
Tell us who you are. What formed you? What's your story?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern California. I'll be here in Kansas City 10 years this October, so it's not like I'm new. But first 29 years of my life in Southern California. Grew up in a mixed religious family. So some people followed Jesus, some did not. Started going to church up the street with some friends. Found Jesus in the elementary years. Had a growing faith through middle school and high school. But God really, maybe got a hold of me in a new way going into college. I was someone who wanted to play professional baseball, which is why Brian and I often banter around the Dodgers and Braves. So Dodgers are deeply dear to my heart. So So that was the dream, man. I wanted to play ball all my life, and so went to UC San Diego. 110 people trying out. Top D2 school, made it to the top 60, got cut the third day. And I still remember the couch flop, in my dorm, and going, okay, God, like I need you to, cause I was passionate about my faith as well, but it's God, you need to redirect my life or else I'm going to track this down somewhere. I think I can still play. And thankfully within a week of that prayer, there are a couple girls on campus who knocked on the door with cookies and invited us to Bible study. And 2 or 3 out of the 4 of us showed up to that.
Did you go for the cookies or for the ladies?
All of it. It was all of it for sure. I can't deny that. But it was the first time I started just blowing up in my faith. And it would be primarily because of, on campus, a couple Bible studies I would go to weekly, great churches in San Diego. And I started reading God's word like every day. It was really weird. It was new for me, even though I'd been probably a Christian 6 years of my life. So number of things came through. I mean, I came back from winter quarter after 11 weeks, just knowing God wanted something different for my life. Wasn't going to be a baseball player anymore and had no idea. So that led to all kinds of things as a part of Crew. So that Bible studies was with Crew. And so I really didn't have the language then. I became an everyday missionary on campus. Like that's honestly what God, the very thing we're talking about today, became a passionate heartbeat, which was like, geesh, there's all these people who don't know Jesus, and I get to live in these dorms and hang out with them, and I want to help people find Jesus, So that became a driving force in my life those 4 years of college.
All right, keep it going forward. You ended up in Kansas City.
So, went to seminary, got to meet my wife, all that good stuff in California still, and then got a church planting bug, had a catalytic conversation with a friend who really was challenging me in that direction and had never on the radar, and started to search that out for about 6 months. This was be back in 2014. And it led to, my wife is from Columbia, Missouri. So that's the somewhat close to Kansas City connection. Found a church out here. One of our good friends, Restore Community Church, who the Underground does tons of stuff with. We love them. They lured us out here with a minimally paying church planting residency. They were actually very generous to us. So they first said it was nothing, and then they gave us money. So it was cool.
Nice.
So started raising support, of course, but my wife and I did a church planting residency with them for about 2 years. Then we did some pre-launch phase. We launched a church in the Prairie Village area back in 2017. Did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then we rolled into the Underground. So 21 was our transitional year where we just thought God might be doing something in the DMM world and, disciple making. We knew you, Brian and Rob, and there are a few friends that I had and that Josh and Sarah had and my wife had. So anyways, 2021 was this really challenging year of transitioning a singular into a decentralized. And then right at the beginning, January 1st of 2022 was like, we're fully in, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's been our journey.
What was this a question I didn't prep you for, but like, what was that transition? Like, what was the sort of, hey, we want to embrace this smaller way? I mean, really, you were founded with disciple making at your core.
For sure. Yep.
I know the 3DM influence, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Like, what were you guys processing? What were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, both globally, I'd been exposed to a lot of DMM stuff. I had even tried some of this with some Novo missionaries back in California in 2013 on a college campus, and I did it completely wrong, but saw some cool stuff. But anyways, just this idea of like,
maybe not wrong,
imperfectly, but quite imperfectly. I was so I'm an AE on the APES stuff. And so especially back 10 years ago, man, I would just, if somebody said they could do it, I'd be like, cool, I bet you can. And so I did very little training or I just missed that so often. So I didn't do good supporting of those college leaders who were trying to do this. So bottom line, I had been exposed to this stuff for many years. And I think what we are seeing, like some of the disciple making culture had some mixed results in that at Serve. And so we just want to say, well, what if we let it go even more? I remember even a couple summers prior to 2021. Yeah, maybe it was the summer of 2019. I remember doing like a solo retreat and I was reading Brian Sanders, just the story of the underground, right? His first book. And I literally remember circling a few different names of the major incomes of our leaders and go, there are at least 6 churches here. Like this person could do that. Like, cause I knew them well enough to know, I bet you they would do these sorts of things, like, reaching their fellow teachers or I was like, oh my goodness. And I didn't at that time yet have whether it was the fortitude or the help or the whatever to go, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So there was stuff God was doing way before 2021 as we're like sifting through that. It was just like, man, what if we just let it roll? What if we did more out there and learned how to coach and support it? So we actually needed you guys, now it's a we, but at that time we like the hub cohort was really important for us. Without that, we just wouldn't have had to figure out, like, how do you go from having a lead pastor like myself and go, okay, flatline leadership structures and like those things, like us seeing it and going, oh, like this, here's the transitional pathway forward. Yeah. So we needed that.
Yeah. So I made mention of this. I mean, disciple making is at your core. You I would say it's sort of second conversion, probably with Crew.
Yeah.
You met Jesus, but then it's in that college world. At some point you were trained with 3DM language that is really disciple making language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's always been a part of your story. It's not like I want to teach on Sunday. It's like, no, I want to make disciples. Maybe flesh that out a little bit more.
Yeah. And I would say, man, that's a great question. So one of the hodgepodging is, I do like communication. I do think in our Western paradigms, like the platform and the Sunday morning thing. So during seminary, that was also going. So there was the funny part is, like, there was part of me that always was drawn to that, or saying, this is how you're supposed to do this thing, And so I think, that was maybe the hodgepodge, is like, had I not also, I think I'm supposed to be this teacher dude on Sundays and I'm going to draw in people, that was pumping at the same time, which I think was some of the confusion of it, or no, you really can like lead and do some things in a different way. So that was the freedom of maybe shifting away from that. And instead just going, look, we need ordinary people who can do disciple making. Many people, I would say many Christians, don't have wonderful stories of like, hey, who are you discipling right now? Or who discipled you? Spiritual moms and dads, right? Like just the simplicity of that. So yeah, it was in, 16 and 17 that, or 15 even, that people were passing that on or giving me a vision for that. So Josh Jackoway, even one of the Serve directors, like he was the one who had handed that to me again. Yeah. Back in really like 2015. So yeah, I needed that. I needed to know there were some other ways to do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the reason why we don't ever prep and give you questions ahead of time, even though I tried to today, is people say things and I'm like, oh, we should talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
So some of the people that listen are, not just ordinary listeners, but they're leading a network, or they might be leading a church, and they're going, I'm curious about this smaller way thing, curious about disciple making movements. I'm curious. I think this will help them. Like, what was that transition like? Was it like all balloons and roses and happy emojis? Was it painful?
Yeah, it was largely painful, I would say. So it was also, it was some of both. So it was right as we closed 2020. We realized, our staff and elder team had tons of unity. We actually even, after numerous conversations said, do we need to become more attractional and figure out this thing better on Sundays? Or do we need to be highly equipping, missional, to the point where you wouldn't invite neighbors there, not because you're being weird and cult-like, but because you're truly in an equipping environment for missional Christians, like, period. And so we put that to our team and elders without me saying, this is what we're doing. Like, no, we are going to discern this together. So that built to a point where every single person who was a decision maker said, we want the missional equipping. Like, we don't know what that looks like, but we're not going to pump the attractional thing. So that was huge clarity and huge unity. So as we went into the transitional, that was key. Then I would say during the year, so what we did on Sundays, for all you Sunday leaders, so we did 8 months in the book of Acts, and we're just, kind of like dripping some stuff on the top, because we had some, again, we started talking deeply with the underground, like, all right, how do you do what you do? And, so this is going on the underneath with our staff and our elders, right? And on the top, on the Sundays, we're just going, hey, let's walk through the book of Acts and see what ordinary disciples are doing as the Spirit empowers them to do stuff. So houses and hubs and, these sorts of ideas. And we're sort of just kind of dripping that. We even did like I remember there was an Easter baptism at a park. There are all these just little things that were, embodying the stuff where we were trying to head, or hoping that God would lead us. At the same time, we had these really hard, at certain times, like meetings with some core leaders and some staff to go like, hey, we really think God might be moving us towards it, like getting feedback. So we did leadership feedback, and some of those meetings were super hard. And even, one of our amazing staff leaders that we still love and have good relationship with today, like they were kind of out, just, you could tell as vision were getting more clarified. It was like, ooh, this idea of the non-Sunday centric thing became a challenge. We knew that some people, as you shift that DNA, some people are going to leave. So, and we even assumed, like in my mind, I was like, I hope it's 30 or 40%, like I think maybe. So we also started doing tent making stuff, which we don't necessarily need to go down that road. But like part of it was like, I think securing salary or income, or like, that is a part of a leader's discernment, right? Like how is this stuff going to go? So we were doing some of that again, as we're just discerning and walking out this year. And then what we did was at our 4-year anniversary, that September of 2021. So by this time we were in the KC Hub cohort. We had already done missionary pathway huddle, and again, all the whole time, the cool part is like most of staff and elder like, yep. This is great. So then we hosted a potluck on our 4-year anniversary saying, hey gang, this is awesome. This fall we're doing a directional series, and it's not just like a fall series. It's like, hey, we think this is where God is heading us, and we want you to be fully immersed and involved in the discernment of that. So by that time we had 3 different couples, so mostly staff and elders, who said, we'll lead a missionary pathway huddle. So we invited our whole church to do that. We then said, we're going to do this for the next, and our Sundays will actually be like reverse learning. So do your missionary pathway on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is. Sunday, we'll do that same theme of the week, but it's really reinforcing what you already did. Then we said, cool, November, what we'll be done with that. We're going to take 3 or 4 Sundays. We're going to talk about this. Like, cause by this time we're pretty small and like intimate, relational, whatever. And what would it mean to go from a singular church into a decentral? Okay. And then December, we need to know who's in, just like not in a weird way, but just like this is a major shift. So I said all that. And it was funny. I mean, there were a couple of people that was their last Sunday, so again, you get the clarity. And there was also some new people that came in. Like one was a new couple, literally their first Sunday was that Sunday. And I laughed with them before and said, like, you're going to hear the vision, and you're either going to be here the following week, or you're not going to want anything.
Yeah.
They were there. They gave a great, amazing end of year gift. It was super fun. Just there were some funny things that God did that were super beautiful in that time. But all said and done, by 2022, we're probably lost about 70%. So I mean, like when we started in the underground, the cool part was like we felt consistent, authentic, like God, we shepherded the people you gave us. We tried to take everyone who wanted to come and do this. It landed really hard, but now we're kind of done with that season because we literally took a whole year.
Yeah.
And let's move forward. And so that's been really fun.
Yeah.
But it was a hard year.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Early on in the podcast, we interviewed Chris Galanos.
Oh yeah.
And they went through
He's one of my heroes.
a similar shift of like, hey, we're going to slowly take a whole bunch of people that have thought this way, do the metanoia, repentance, and go,
yep,
Jesus wants us to go this way.
Mega church to multiplicity. So and I did tent making with him. I mean, so he's a buddy through all that season. Everything he does, like, okay, this is somebody's done this.
Yeah. All right. So we're in this long series of 15 observations in urban disciple making movements. And we're on number 12, which is this lead by example into the harvest. So again, just reminding people, we've had an intro week. Last week we interviewed Nick Herringshaw. Have you met Nick?
I have not.
Oh man, such an amazing dude.
Good guy.
Huh? So here's the potential strategy that the document offers. Again, urban disciple making leaders should continue to engage actively, go to the lost and broken themselves. They should not outsource the task of engaging the harvest to others, but rather lead and influence the movement to engage as a regular disciplined life rhythm. So again, the idea is that we're not graduating, as they say in the document, to this place where, we tell other people to go make disciples. But we ourselves are also doing the work, writing our own story with Jesus of what he's inviting us into. So as you hear that observation and you've had an experience in the predominant model and you're thinking like, yeah, we were trying to make disciples back there too. It wasn't like we didn't care about that, but yeah, just what reflections come up as you hear that observation?
Yeah. So again, my kind of APS wiring is A&E. So I'm a high, I love new people coming to Jesus, So yes, I would just say, we want to be practitioners at all levels. We want to just love people well, and we want to keep joining Jesus and, moving towards people who don't know him. Right. So I think that's just core to apprenticeship to Jesus and, making him known, and ideally having at least a few people that you can honestly raise your hand and just simply say, yeah, I'm praying for them regularly. I'm being loved by them and loving them in return, like mutually reciprocal, caring relationships. Right. But yeah, just saying, look, we never like graduate from loving people who don't yet know Jesus. Right. We talk a lot about, gospel presence, right? Gospel demonstration and gospel proclamation, right? So all three of those layers, we just want to be people who are doing that and being that with others.
Let me ask you this again. We always want to posture this podcast towards ordinary people because that's who we are. But this observation, just by nature of what it is sort of like postured toward leaders. Was it more difficult in the other paradigm to think this way? Like, has it freed you up a bit more as you've made this shift with your people to go like, oh, now I can like actually be one of?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in both, I think the difference would be the freedom of time, right? Because, I think it's hard to get around, whether it's sermon prep or other Christian leader meetings or things that you do as a regular leader. So yeah, it could potentially free you up for a lot more, just, spending more time at your gym because you like doing that. And there are people there who don't know Jesus or whatever, third spaces and home and neighborhood. And so, yeah, I definitely think it gives freedom for that. It also gives freedom for creativity or like new engagement of things. So I've done a lot of that in the last year personally. It's been kind of fun. Just new missional context that I've opened up. So yeah, I think it frees up your time to do those sorts of things for sure.
Yeah, that's good, man. All right. So let's get into your story. I don't know why I said that. We've been in your story. Let's like the current reality as you think about leaders should lead the way into the harvest, or you should maybe not lead the way. That's probably not the most helpful way to say that. you're being one of. You're also doing the work. So when you think about your current story, what are the ways you're going, I'm trying to embody this. I want to make disciples. I don't want to just tell other people how to do it.
Yeah. Over the last year, I'd have 2 primary new spaces that I started moving into. So the first one was soccer in the KCK area. So we partner with a club, and then my 2 sons played on a soccer team, and we use that for just loving people well, being a good dad, but then also engaging kids with the gospel. And so we would do weekly practices in the Discovery Bible Study with some pizza that was even granted to us and all this stuff. So just creating a space where people can start to, we talked about being with Jesus, becoming like Jesus, and doing what he did. And, some of those families were very new to faith or not in faith. And again, it's just like, hey, I'm going to be dad. I'm going to be with my kids. I'm going to help coach soccer, and let's engage people all at the same time. Right. So like taking those already life rhythms, but saying, like, how could we make disciples in this space? So saw some fun things come out of that in the last year.
Just a little more practically on that one. What were the rhythms?
Yeah, I mean, that one was the primary thing. So we'd have a, weekly practice and then a weekly game. So, at the second grade, first, that age group, you're not practicing 4 times a week or whatever. So what we tried to do is, thankfully, again, because we got pizza granted to us through the underground. So we said, hey, we're going to have Tuesday practice. It's 5 to 6 p.m. What's good news to families at that time?
At 6 p.m.
Exactly. And I'm one of them, right? We got 3 kids, and it was like, okay, if we can get pizza here, they'll stay for a Discovery Bible study. If we can't, they're going to go home and eat. So we just felt like that was just this whole list. Like, if I'm just an everyday ordinary missionary, we know that's good news. It's good news to my family to not have to think about dinner plans. So all that stuff. So we ate together, which was a blast, and all the kids appreciated that, and the adults did too. And it also, what was funny, I still remember like practice number 1 to practice number 2 back last August was, there were a few extra mouths and people who came to practice number 2 because like, oh, sweet, there's gonna be pizza, right? So we just knew that was good news. And it was only about half an hour total, so we're eating, and then we would celebrate wins, like, hey, we call them shout outs, hey, this person passed really well and this person, so we do all that. Then we'd say, hey, where are you winning? Where are you challenged? And then we'd go into either a video teaching of the life of Jesus, like a real short story, or we'd read a scripture or anything, but just engage the person of Jesus together, ask some of those basic discovery questions. We pray for each other, and that was kind of it, and that was Tuesday night. Then we'd have our games on Saturdays, which were a blast. Some people even started coming to our home space on occasion on Sundays. So there was just some interconnection family things that started to happen. One of the other really cool things that happened this spring was we were able to get like 25 free tickets to Sporting KC, and there were at least 7 or 8 of the people who came who had never been to a professional soccer game. That was literally their first. So it's just really fun to just be family together. So we just started thinking through those sorts of things, like what looks and feels like family. How do we anchor this in the person of Jesus and discovering and following him? And so those were some of the things that kind of flowed out over time over the last year.
That's so good, man.
Yeah, they're fun.
Jump into that second one.
Yeah. Second one, so this is my even newest, is probably just in the last 3 or 4 months. What's fun though is it's one of those families from that soccer team. They've been leading a ministry in our city for like 12, 15 years in all the juvenile detention centers of our city. I think there's 4 of them. There's even a few more in the Northland. So anyways, because of that relational equity, and you start to become like the people you're around, their heart for juvenile justice and teen pregnancy, because they have some other stuff that they do. Just like, man, I have literally visited a prison 1 time in my whole year, or my whole life, as a 39-year-old follower of Jesus. So they kind of hooked me on that, and just like, man, I'm going to start coming. So Wyandotte has a detention center. And so on Wednesdays, I now join a team of a couple people who do a Discovery Bible study. We usually have 10 to 12 boys in there. And, these are, we've lots in this podcast. There's some places you have to go. There is no, like, okay, come to church with us. Right. So this is one of those identified environments that that has to be the case. And even yesterday, I was just there, and right afterwards, there's also a guy who does this after school club we won't go into, but it's funny. He gave feedback because he works in the juvenile detention system, and he was like, "Yeah, the boys call it church," and it was really funny because he still hasn't fully embraced some of these paradigms, which is all good. Yeah. But I was laughing with him. It's like, yeah, I'd say it is, so just little things where it's like, yeah, this is their experience of church. This is all they can do. So Wednesdays we come in there, and we've got a couple kids who are now, like, one of the shifts I've made over the last 3 months is some of the boys like leading our discussion and owning a little bit more. So just trying to get it into their hands to figure it out and choose the psalm and choose this. And we do a feelings check-in, and there's emotional attachment stuff that we're trying to just little things. So that's a beautiful space. And then what we're trying to do, even with we really want to work on some of the aftercare. So ideally, as you know, with one of our hubs is Share the Hope that is around previously incarcerated adults. We want to start to pilot what could this look like for youth. So we don't know that answer yet, but in the next 6 to 9 months, I'd like to believe we'll have a pilot group at some point of some of these boys who are wanting to get their life back, wanting to keep following Jesus or learn how to follow Jesus, and need a couple adults who are also mentoring them and just have that space on the outside life as well.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hoping for.
So beautiful, man. What do you do outside of this? You mentioned tent making. I actually do want to go into that for a reason.
Lots. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I am now, as of just the last 18 months, I work in Medicare as well, or not in Medicare, but I help people enroll into their Medicare benefits. And so I'm a broker. So I have my own company that essentially is just me. It's an S Corp. But I am, helping our senior community enroll into their Medicare benefits, which is obviously super, super important. I've done that the last 18 months. The couple years before that, I was trying to do house flipping with some wins and some losses and some whoopses and some all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, God kind of radically shifted me into the Medicare space, and it's been really cool.
The reason I wanted to go into that is because the observation is network leaders should also be modeling this, which is what you're doing. But I wanted to highlight it as a way to go, like, you're not just like paid full time to go do this.
Yeah.
It's not like you have 40 hours a week to go, I'll take Wednesday and go into the youth detention center. It's like, no, you're thinking about taking care of your family, thinking about providing for those needs. You're thinking about integrating your life into what your kids want to do, being in and among, not just taking them to soccer, but actually coaching it, which that one's hard for me.
It's tricky.
I got to coach. I use that very loosely with 6-year-old soccer team or whatever.
Oh man,
that was
that's wild.
I'm sure they had a blast. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just running up and down the field with them. But so like, there's a full life integration here where you're going like, where am I already existing, and how can I think about disciple making in that context? And then that began to inform, where else might I exist and write a new story in my own life? Like, what is burdening me, and what is burdening the people that I'm among and doing disciple making? But it's not your job.
Yeah. I mean, it's part-time. I mean, I get a director salary, so I get some part-time stuff. And
I don't want to let that part be out, but it's not like you've cleared 40 hours just for this.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think just, and that has normalized, here's an ordinary person's life who's not just getting paid vocation, because again, for years I was in that paid vocation space. So yeah, it's come with a lot of like fun things, a lot of hard things, a lot of like, I'm trying to slowly build a meaningful business, and it's a lot harder than you think it is. And those sorts of things. And then, I mean, thankfully Medicare allows me to be very nimble because again, that was why I chose, or it seemed potentially appealing, is that allowed me to both do network leading and, hop in and hop out of meetings and do those things, but then also schedule new meetings with new clients with the Medicare side. So I can really go back and forth. And some days my head is spinning because I'm literally, I've got both jobs on both day, on the same day, 3 or 4 times back and forth. Other days are more blocked out. Like, all right, on Monday, Tuesday, I'll really rock more serve directing type stuff. And then Thursday, Friday, I'll take some more, Medicare appointments, and Wednesday's a little bit split this. And so, so like, my week kind of ebbs and flows that way. So it's tricky at times for sure.
Yeah. And even for those listening that it's like, I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm not going to start a business.
Yeah,
I got a 9 to 5. It's still like the underlying biblical principle, which is what we'll get into next week, actually, is integrate your life.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Like, where are you already existing? And how can you think about that as a disciple making space and not, I have my life and I got to figure out how to work in this disciple making thing somewhere else.
Yeah. Yep.
And the other thing that I think I wanted to highlight was just that, as we think about the Kansas City Underground, this is more me just riffing here, for our people, like DNA stuff, is as we think about directors, like what we get to do, we're not above.
Yeah, no way.
We're not directing. And I mean, we have an opportunity to serve and to be alongside of, but we really want to see our roles as like, we're one of two.
Yep.
Or one of two. We're one of also. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So, we've got this image that we use that helps describe our network, and it's an umbrella, and there's there's the hub on one side and there's the decentralized network. And it's like, it's one of the values that we want to embrace is like, you don't serve on one of these hub teams if you're not a practitioner.
Yeah, you're not doing it
in the network. And I think that's one of as I look at our directors like you across the network, I'm so encouraged because it's like, oh man, I'm hearing crazy good stories to go like, this is what Jesus did. He modeled for the disciples a way of, he wasn't like, he was telling them, hey, I'm going to prepare you to do this when I'm gone.
Yep.
So there's a role in that, but he was also doing the work and engaging. Mm-hmm. So quick reflections on that stuff you'd want to speak over the underground.
Yeah. I mean, one, I'm always inspired just by hearing the many, many stories of people doing this stuff. I mean, there are just so many different wonderful missionary contexts, so many just good relationships, neighborhoods, networks of relationships. I mean, I'm just thrilled and encouraged and challenged by others and what they do. Yeah, I mean, I would take myself back. I mean, another key moment actually was when I was 22, is I was in the Dominican Republic for a summer and got to live with a pastor's family and 3 kids. And they had, real small, rather impoverished area, and financially anyways. And, they had a sweet church, 50, 70 people, 3 or 4 nights of the week they're in church, but it's like their eyeglass shop was the business that propelled that. Cause the tithes were not where they got most of, if any, of their own salary and income. So I think just that basic reality, like people remembering that, just being an everyday person, working a job, loving people, still doing ministry on top of that, building relationships, integrating, like you said, so neighborhood context or somewhere where you're just going, Lark, all right, I know some people here. I'm praying for some people here. I am witnessing here in word, deed, and all this stuff. Like, we can all do that, and that's what God has called us to. And we can encourage each other and challenge each other to keep on that, because it's oftentimes slow and hard and relationship pains and all kinds of stuff that comes with that when you really take on the burdens of others and let them take on your burdens as you give them to others, right? So there's that back and forth. And but yeah, I mean, that's something that I think is core to the underground is people who are saying, can we help new people come into the kingdom? Can we build spiritual families among people who are discovering Jesus for the first time? And can we be the type of people that doesn't offshoot our evangelistic witness to others? Because I think, again, even in the the traditional or Western paradigm, for the most part, I think we're trying to maybe challenge to some extent the kind of build and bring type models, right? Like, you build a relationship, bring them here on Sundays, and I'll sign it off, right? And I used to fall into that, on the other side of the platform, in that model. So I think what's more fascinating, or there's a story from our hub, I would say, even, and I won't use names or anything, but reminded that somebody was asking us about a baptism of somebody who was like checking in, and I was like, hey, have you thought about you baptizing them? Because it's your relation, and all it took was asking that question, and she's like, oh yeah, of course, and has this conversation like she's going to baptize her in the next month or so, and it's like, I think some of these are those paradigm shifts of like, yeah, like you're already kind of discipling her. And what the funny part is, this person had them in a discovery study, like through their context of these moms that this gal is reaching. And it's just like, you just got to ask them, like, well, why would we, like, I don't even know this person. Like, why would I do that? You know? So anyways, I think those are the type of things that we're trying to fuel and encourage and equip people to do. It's just, I think your microchurch probably needs a baptism.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. I'm going to give you the last word. So whether it's a prophetic moment, listen to Jesus, you're saying some things there of, we need each other. We need to encourage each other. We need to tell these stories. We don't need to give up. Like, if you're speaking over ordinary people in the underground and you would want to encourage them with one word, what would you say?
Yeah, I would want to encourage just simply around listening prayer, to be honest. I think some of the newer kingdom assignments of the last year, like neither of these two that we just talked about, they were not on my radar as of, just over a year ago. So I think, I would want to keep encouraging, listen to the Lord, keep making space with some regularity to say, God, where are you sending me? And who, and what might that look like? And even if it's something entirely new, like, if God is prompting you, as you're reflecting and in scripture and in prayer and doing those sorts of things, like, God can open up entirely new things. So I'd want to encourage and bless our crew with that just openness to doing that. And then just continuing to cultivate, like, hey, who is someone who doesn't know Jesus that I can just be friends with, and you probably already have those friends. So it's God, would you show me who I'm supposed to be kind of connecting more deeply with?
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We'll bring you back.
All right. Sounds good.